I am mining investor, speculator, and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here without my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who is off celebrating his 10th wedding anniversary with his beautiful wife and family. So I'm writing solo this week, talking to myself. This is the 238th weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. It'll be an abbreviated episode because I don't have Mr. Hodge's wisdom, insights, and intellect to hold up my ranting and my raving, but you're going to get the usual dose of lithium news, gold updates, a peek at the US dollar, a take on the overall markets. I'll give you a brief Patriot update. So let's get right into it. There's some really interesting things going on out there in the markets. The overall indices continue to look weak to me. This is, one of Nick's predictions for the past 6 months or so, that the NASDAQ would start slowly but surely falling apart. That now has had its worst month in 2023, the month of September. And look, folks, October always tends to have nasty macro surprises. So no crystal ball here. Not sure what it is that could set a black swan event up. But I will say this, a dollar index surging towards the 107 level and then retreating briefly to above the 106 level. Given the debt that needs to be serviced on a global scale, and given the Fed's continued hawkish stance here in the US, is a recipe for disaster. And the reason being, we don't live in a vacuum, right? So while the dollar is strong and we can be hawkish here in an effort to curb the inflation that the Fed caused, governments around the world don't quite have as much flexibility. They don't have the luxury of being the reserve currency. So I say all that to say, be careful out there in macro land, because it's going to continue to be volatile, in my opinion. Let's get into how that's correlating in the resource space, which is my wheelhouse. Gold, which has been looking very, very technically strong, holding that 1870 level, finally crumbled below that. Today's Friday, September the 29th. It sits at 1848 as we speak. I would not be, surprised, and Nick wrote this in his weekly letter to paying subscribers on the Digest publishing side of the business. I wouldn't be surprised to see a test of 1800. Technically, that would be fine. It prolongs a bit, kind of what we've called for, which what I've said is that I believe by the end of the year, we have a dollar that's above, gold price that's above 2,000. Clearly, the dollar is providing headwinds towards that forecast. So it'll happen, folks. You're going to get higher prices. You're going to get new all-time highs, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen necessarily in the order or with the velocity that we want it to. That, of course, has hammered silver down to the 22 level, copper's down to the 370 level. And interestingly enough, right, and here's the conundrum, and this is where I say I think something may break soon. Crude oil is still above the 90 level despite a dollar index that again has flirted with the 107 level. So you have some central banks around the world cutting. You have central banks here in the US holding, but letting you know that it is willing to cut or to hike aggressively to continue to fight inflation. You have inflation numbers that aren't really cooperating and giving the Fed the cover it needs to prolong the hikes for a period of time. So it's going to be an interesting end to the year. Let's talk about what is working. Uranium is absolutely working, as we said it would. Companies like Sky Harbor Resources, which we highlighted last week, were up some 30% this week, touching 52-week highs. Other companies like Consolidated Uranium just announced a merger. It's touched 52-week highs. A portfolio favorite in my paid service, Encore Energy, has touched 52-week highs. I could go on, right? UEC, run by, Amir Adnani and his talented and very influential group. They've made comments that this is the bull market they've been waiting 18 years for, which is why they continue a two-pronged approach. One being the hub and spoke approach that they have as it relates to their production profile, and the other being completely unhedged, right? They were able to be contrarians and buy the low or close to the lows and secure a significant amount of uranium pounds, I believe at the $40 level. And here uranium sits at the $74, $75 level. up some 70% in 6.5 months. So listen, I think that space, that sector definitely has some runway. But if you're really looking to be a contrarian and buy some beaten up stocks, you have a heck of an opportunity in lithium. And we'll talk about lithium and we'll talk about Patriot and we'll talk about Argentina Lithium, which struck one of the most lucrative deals for its shareholders that I've seen in a bit. It speaks to, I think, what's coming. And we'll talk about Quebec and we'll talk about Northvolt, but we'll get into all of that here in just a second. My point is, if you want to be a real contrarian and you have a couple of year window to let your profits run, the uranium sector is working now, but those stocks are up, some 2 or 3-fold over the past year and a half. The gold space is providing you opportunities unlike I've seen in a very, very long time. The copper space, especially the juniors, it's giving you pounds in the ground for a penny a pound. When traditionally, those pounds in the ground are valued roughly around 4 cents a pound. And so, companies like Aldebaran Resources, which we've highlighted before, which has a massive copper gold resource, are trading literally for pennies on the dollar. There's real opportunity in the gold and the copper space if you can withstand some of these US dollar headwinds that are going to continue to put some pressure on the copper price and on the gold price for the next several months, I believe. Let's get into lithium. Look, there's I mentioned, and some of you had some funny comments, by the way, but I mentioned early in September that we were going to get a month of surprises, right? That we were going to have a month of surprises as it related to both Patriot Battery Metals, which continues to be my single largest, the story already, personal holding in terms of net worth and dollar value, but also in the lithium space. And you've had zero shortage of surprises with both Patriot and in the lithium space, all of which have been positive, by the way. And look, for the people that whine out there about share prices, believe you me, I have as much a vested interest in seeing a higher price. Not today, because I'm not selling any significant amounts of stock. I am holding for the eventual buyout or a production decision, which makes Patriot a legacy stock, which I believe, by the way, it is more possible today than I did a couple of months ago. The possibility of Patriot actually taking Corvette into production and becoming a legacy stock like a Pilbara that's spitting out dividends to its shareholders and, prolonging taxable events of consequence for, shareholders, long-term shareholders like myself and others that have bigger holdings than myself. So that chatter has increased. The chatter to delist is very, very real. It has a lot of support, including from yours truly. That's real, and that wasn't on the board before September. The news release that we got on the 24th of September, let me pull it up so I speak accurately, extending the strike length to 4.35 kilometers at CV5, a drill rig at CV9. All of that is going according to plan. I understand that the delay in assays has to do with a lab issue that is being worked out now. There are several holes that I believe should be starting to trickle in soon if they haven't already done so. And I believe October is the month that we finally start seeing some assay results. But what really just boggles my mind as it relates to the whiners in Patriot stock, and again, I get the share price hasn't performed. It will perform when it performs. The market will re-rate it. I think a delisting from the Canadian side of things is going to be beneficial towards that. Let's see if that happens anytime soon. And of course, I've also opined that I want to spin out of the non-core assets so I can get a bunch more shares in some assets that I think have real potential in the future, especially as it relates to Quebec and the macro events that are going on, which I'll also touch on in a bit. But if you read the latest release, the company is telegraphing to you that they now have every reason to believe that this entire 10-kilometer strike length is connected. And they said as much in the release. And it is beyond me how you can take the macro news that's been coming out of Quebec and couple that with what the company now is sharing with you. And let me read the exact quote. mineralogy and textures in drill core, coupled with geophysics and geomorphology of the area, as inferred from LiDAR and orthophoto data, suggest that the CV5 and CV13 spodumene pegmatites form one continuous pegmatite body subsurface. What I've said and described in the past in very technical terms as one big blob. What Jody DeRouge, who is much smarter than I, especially as it relates to this stuff, has described as a carton of eggs, all connected, one system with, pods that pinch and swell underneath, obviously. The company is quick to caution that a significant amount of drill testing remains to be completed along the corridor to confirm this interpretation. But look, this is the first time that they have publicly come out and explained to everyone in what I thought was layman terms that we're pretty damn sure this whole thing is connected. And the implications for that, when you have $150 to $160 million in the treasury, which, by the way, nobody's complaining about now, raising that at $15. When you have $150 million in the treasury, when you have 7 rigs turning, when you have exploration rigs turning at CV9, and I think that's going to go beautifully, by the way, and then you have 3 more rigs due by year end or early January, things couldn't be better as far as the company executing. I still would like to see the delisting. I still would like to see a spin out of the assets, the non-core assets. But outside of how the share price has performed, the company has done everything it needs to do in order to continue to advance this project. And like I said, there is increased chatter that I'm hearing now from several very influential shareholders that are very receptive to the idea of, look, if we don't get the kind of valuation that we think we deserve, we have all the technical capacity, acumen, and now a potential partner in Albemarle to take this thing across the finish line and spit out cash for the next 10 to 15 years. So the naysayers will point to the spot price being published by China. I'll defer to, again, much smarter people in the space, like the Joe Lowrys of the world and the Chris Berrys of the world, and the folks at Benchmark Mineral Research, which I think is, top notch as far as the critical metal space goes, and research there, worth every penny, by the way. But I'll defer to them when they explain, and when I read financials of producing companies, and then they explain the severe disconnect between what China is publishing and what producers are selling their product for. You don't have to dig much. You can dig a little bit. But if you're not going to dig into a simple press release that the company, like a Patriot, where it's explaining to you the potential here, which, again, 200 to 300 million tons here in the next 6 to 12 months, I think is in the cards. Very, very possible. And then it's really interesting because we have a whole heck of a lot more strike length to map and explore, and a lot of that is being mapped, and we're looking forward to drilling next year on some of those other pods. Let's call them pods, right? But that's a lot for 1 month, and that sets the table for an October that I think is going to be just as eventful. So if you all want to do the due diligence and you want to take the time to break news releases down, company financials down, MD&A reports down, listen to some of the smarter analysts in the space, and then form your own opinions and thoughts. And if you think lithium is done, if you think Patriot is not going to make all-time highs again, sell the stock. I don't control the share price, right? Sell the stock. I vote with my dollars, and I'm willing to bet that I have as much, if not more, at stake financially than a lot of you armchair whiners that whine with every tick down and consolidation. 50% of retracements have been the norm for the stock. Has this one been more frustrating to me as a shareholder and other shareholders and friends and family I have in the stock also at the 16-cent level because of how well the company's executed? Absolutely. Zero doubt about that. Do I think that's a permanent thing? Do I think the run is over? Do I think this is the top? Absolutely not. Again, I vote with my shares. I vote with my dollars. I added some $110,000 worth of Patriot shares this past week at the 7. It filled at 729 and 731 US, right? And the way that it filled was interesting because it took about 40 minutes and it was in 100 share blocks all the way down. that guys, this is program trading at its finest. It's most definitely coordinated. And again, there's a way to solve that. And I think discussions are being had by management, by the largest shareholders that are very influential, and by the next batch of large shareholders like myself and our group that came in, and several people that we were able to get into the stock that don't have as big a say, but have enough of a say to get people on the phone and chime in and support what some of the major shareholders are saying. So that is your Patriot update. Let's get into the macro news, which again couldn't be any better. We just went ahead and had an announcement where Northvolt is going to build a fully integrated lithium ion battery gigafactory near Montreal. And it's going to buy Quebec Lithium, folks. And Albemarle has an MOU with Patriot. And Patriot has by far the largest resource in the region. I know officially it's like point whatever behind the other company, which also has a great resource. No shade there at all. There's plenty of pie for everybody, right? The pie is big enough for everybody. But it's by the time the exploration is done here in the next 6 to 12 months, there's going to be a clear leader in the space for the largest deposit in North America. And I don't think it's going to be close. But that being said, we're going to need more than a Corvette. We're going to need other deposits. Everybody will benefit from success with the drill bit and adding value. And so the Albemarles of the world that came into Patriot at 15 and have an MOU to discuss, a downstream offtakes, they're telling you that they see the future. The Northvolts of the world that are putting $5 billion, that's US dollars, and to employ up to 3,000 people in the region and are willing to commit substantial human capital to this project, are telling you what the future is. And they're outlining it in a simple way if you just read the release. The quote was, Quebec hydroelectricity guarantees cell production from 100% renewable energy, and the region represents an ideal location in the North American automotive value chain. It doesn't get much clearer than that to me as a shareholder of several Quebec plays, Patriot being my largest. I also have, a decent enough holding of a couple of other ones. Everybody knows who my number 2 is. I'll leave that alone for now. But it's clear as day to me. And again, look at where the money is going and look at the people that are paying up. Argentina Lithium. Company I'm familiar with, full disclosure, they're a sponsor and have been for quite some time on the resource stock digest side. I've cheered for them for quite some time. Nick actually, I believe, recommended the company and helped finance the company with his subscribers on a deal that now obviously everybody's weighing the money on because of the recent announcement. But the recent announcement is Argentina Lithium announced a $90 million, again, that's US, investment by Stellantis, right? And when you look and consider the fact that Argentina Lithium's market cap at the time was something like $30 or $33 million, and its market cap still, like, is it even the 90 million cash infusion that's coming in? That should speak to you a bit, folks, about the capital that is coming into the sector and why it's coming into the sector, which is as important as the amount being spent. When I interviewed, and we'll put a link up, when I interviewed Argentina Lithium CEO Nico, and I asked them, I said, Nico, how the heck do you pull this kind of deal off? He said, it's simple. Companies like Stellantis and other partners that were actually willing to come in on similar terms, right? This is a deal that's been negotiated for the past year. He said they are more worried about securing supply than what they'll pay for the supply and what they'll pay to secure it. And I guarantee you this is not the last deal like this that we see in the lithium space. It's going to accelerate. I believe there's going to be, a rush of M&A that continues to place a premium on quality deposits. And again, I hate to go back to Patriot and Corvette, but Corvette is a once-in-a-lifetime asset. And, it's not getting any cheaper out there, folks. Liontown, which is, now being courted, was being courted by another major shareholder. She continues to buy in the market with reckless abandon. They just announced that, Kathleen Valley had a cost overrun of some, I think, 50 million. And this isn't the first one now. So to develop this project is now costing upwards nearly $1 billion. And again, no shade to Liontown, right? That valuation and that offer they got is a substantial one. And congratulations. And again, that's great for everyone that has something similar or better. But it's not a Corvette. It is further ahead, and kudos to them on that front. But my point being, it's not getting any cheaper and it's not getting any less risky. Security of supply is going to be more important than what is paid for that supply. And I encourage everyone to just take a deep breath when you see your lithium shares pull back for a couple of months. Get out in the sun, go get a workout in, go watch your favorite baseball team, be the best baseball team in the second half and then implode in the last week and a half or two in the midst of trying to make a playoff run. And we'll know within 2 days whether or not, by the time you see this, whether or not we made it in. But, we've lost 5 or 6 games and it's not looking too good, folks. But anyhow, we stay supportive during tough times as well. But yeah, get outside, go do some fun stuff. Take a little edge off and relax. We don't have to watch every tick on the stock, folks. It's definitely tough times in the resource space right now for a lot of companies. Patriot has the luxury of not having to go back to the market anytime soon. I mentioned Aldebaran Resources earlier. I'm a huge copper bull in the midterm and the long term. And, it's cashed up. It just secured a $20 million strategic investment from some major investors there. Companies like that don't have to go to the market anytime soon, that are going to be adding value, that are active, that are not dormant, they're going to continue to outperform, whether there's short-term weakness or not. So I hope that you guys found that somewhat helpful. We may or may not have a government shutdown here in the U.S. here by the time you all see this. My Cubs may or may not be in the playoffs. Either way, it's gonna be okay. I hope everybody has an awesome month of October. It should be another fun month in the resource space. I'm supposed to remind all of you to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to hear all of our rantings, ravings, updates, reports from not just me, but far more informed and articulate people like the Mr. Nick Hodges of the world, the Ryan Stansel, John, Mike. I can continue, Chris. It's a talented group over there. A little bit of everything for you folks. You get the resource people, you get the tech people, you get the crypto people, you get the macro people. And all of that is free, and none of that is sponsored by companies. For those of you that have a problem with that business model, getting free information as a result of other companies sponsoring the information, go over there. No sponsor-based content over there. So that was it, folks. I'm Gerardo Del Real. This was episode 238 of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. Have a great month. Looking forward to having my partner and friend, Mr. Hodge, back in office next week. Have a great one, folks.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.